living sober, busy living sober, busy living sober. It's episode 430. How is everybody today? Thanks for coming to my show. If you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're back, hey, what's up? So glad you're here. I'm just like so excited. Life is so good. I swear to gosh, I don't know. The world has kind of shifted inside of me in the last, I'd say, month. It's so crazy. Do you ever get to that place where you're like, oh my gosh, things have changed? I'm not living in this feeling like heaviness. I don't know. Is it spring? I mean, here in Florida, it's hard to tell if it's spring because let's face it, it feels like it's always hot in South Florida. But I could definitely tell that there is a change, even though they're getting they just got major snowstorms up in the Northeast. But lest I digress in what's going on with the weather, happy, happy, happy day and happy 430th episode. And today's topic is how do I get sober? What choice do I make? It's so crazy. Now, I want to preface everything with number one, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to my channel. Number two, if you want to get my newsletter, go to elizabethchance.com and sign up for my newsletter. It comes out every Friday. And I just want to tell you, there's only two more live, well, not live, at least Wednesday episodes that aren't going to be previously recorded from weeks ago or maybe even years ago, because I have two more before I head over to Europe and on my spiritual journey that I'm going on. But I wanted to say, if you're listening, please subscribe to my show. And if you like it and share it with your friends. But you're sitting here and you're like, oh my gosh, I am like sick and tired of drinking. I don't know what to do. What options are there? And for one, I have to start off with this. The fact that there are options is just amazing. I'm like, yes, there's options for people. When I got sober 17 years ago in 2006, it was pretty much AA was it. Okay, let's just face it. Nobody was wanting to get better. Nobody was wanting to get healthy. There was no light coming into the universe. There was just like, okay, the only way to get sober if you had a drinking problem was either, I guess, stay home and do it yourself, or B, which was what I did because I'm social and I want to be around people, was I went to AA. And that was the only option that I knew that would work for me. And today, oh my gosh, it's like a smorgasbord. You can decide what you want to do. And I don't think that you have to do one and then not do anything else. I think that you get to do whatever you want to do that you feel comfortable with, but you can do maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's like going to that big, a smorgasbord, literally going to that food line and going to like this buffet and going, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a little of this and I'm gonna have a little of that and I'm gonna have a little of this and I'm gonna have a little of that. And it's going to make my beautiful cake of my life and how I'm going to get sober. I think each person gets to decide what's best for them. As I mentioned, there were no other options for me. It was literally, that was it. It was AA. And I am so, so grateful for the journey that I had. And I say that because I've had continuous sobriety since I went to that first meeting back in 2006. So knowing that, I would never say anything bad about AA. I have nothing negative to say about AA whatsoever. It worked for me. And I think that's cool. And it worked for a lot of my friends that I met when I got sober back in 2006 that are still sober to this day. So something was working. It's so crazy. It was like I was talking to a friend of mine about I have an old dog. She just turned 13 and a couple weeks ago. And she's a golden doodle and she's a big girl. Her name's Penelope. If you don't know me, you don't know about Penelope, but I just want to tell you, I have Penelope and Lily. Penelope's my golden doodle and Lily's my Cavapoo, who's 4 years old. But I have a 13-year-old golden doodle. And I said to one of my friends who studied tech stuff back in the day, I was like, what do you think I should do with my dog? Should I keep her on this food or should I put her on one of those new fancy foods that looks like human food? And she's like, why wouldn't you just keep giving her the kibble she has? It's working. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hello. And it's like for me, I've been doing this sober journey for so long, and what's working is working for me. Why am I going to upset the apple cart? Right. But if you're new and you're like, I don't know that I want to go to AA, it has this terrible connotation, which I think is so crazy in some ways because it's what the Dalai Lama said was the best thing to come out of the Western Hemisphere was AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. That was, started about. I'm not going to give you the right date, so I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to give you throw out a number, but it's been decades and decades and decades and decades. Um, and so when I got sober, that was the only option. And I believe in deep in my heart that we need people that we can talk to and be honest with to get sober and be sober. I think there's a spiritual component that's so huge for me that I believe is so important. Hence, I've had so many people on the podcast recently talking about God. I mean, this is the Holy Week. We're about to embark on Easter. And so it's that spiritual piece for me is like I need it. It's just this is a non-negotiable. I don't think I could ever be sober today if I didn't have God. I know that in my heart of hearts. I know. I mean, I would stand on a Bible. I would do whatever you need me to do, but I'm going to tell you that it's God that's gotten me, helped me stay sober through all these years. And it's not my human will because my willpower used to be standing outside the bar going, I'm only going to have one dirty martini and walking out that bar having 47. So it's not my will. I had to just get to this place that I turned it over. And that worked for me and was huge for me. And again, I've always had, if you don't know me and you're here for the first time, so I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic. My mother, God rest her soul, was Catholic and my father's Jewish. And so, but I was raised in the Catholic Church. So I always knew about God. It was a part of our family's ritual that we did every Sunday. We went to church. I went to church Catholic school when I was little. And so I had an idea of who God was. And obviously, like a lot of people, I got to middle school and I was like, I'm not doing that. I mean, not middle school, like high school and going off to college, church wasn't as important anymore. Once you made your sacraments, at least for me, I was like, I did my first Holy Communion and then you get confirmed. And then it's kind of like, okay, you're off to the races until you get married, which is the next sacrament. And at that point, I married a man that was Episcopalian. I raised my kids Episcopalian because at that time stuff was going on in the church and I have sons and I didn't want to get involved in that. And that was my decision. But I did want to have God in my life. So I always, always, always have gone to church. I just went to the Episcopal Church, and the Episcopal Church was like Catholic light, which is what they called it, because Henry VIII, was married to Catherine. She couldn't bear him a son heir. So he left. He's like, I'm going to start my own church. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to start my own church. I'm going to start the Episcopal Church, which he did, the Church of England. And that's where I joined. And so that's where I raised my kids, which felt really good for me because it had the feeling of the Catholic Church because a lot of the prayers I knew, a lot of the rituals again inside of that church felt the same. So that's where I felt most comfortable. And that's where I raised my kids. So that's where they went to church. I mean, they were all three of them were baptized in the Catholic Church, but then we were raised in the Episcopal Church. So I'm telling you this because, again, I've always had a belief in God. And I know I couldn't hear him, I couldn't feel him, I couldn't touch him. I can't say that today because I do remember being in a really, really, really dark time and being in my house outside of Philadelphia in Wayne, PA, and being in my house and just having this sense like that God had come down and like was just hugging me and telling me it's all going to be okay. And I remember that I still to this day remember laying on it was in my third floor. It was my son's bedroom. So it must have been after my kids had graduated from my oldest had graduated from high school because I moved to the third floor at that point. And I remember being in that room and that feeling coming over me like, oh my gosh, it's going to be okay. And that was like the first time I had like this blessing of feeling like, oh my gosh, God is so real. And when I walked, and there is a reason I'm telling you this story. It's because when I walked into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, 17 plus years ago, I remember looking up at the wall and they had the 12 steps written there. And I was like, I can do this one. I'm going to finally graduate from something summa cum laude. The whole joke was on me because you don't ever graduate. But having that relationship with God, which was so important in those beginning years of sobriety and still going forward in steps 10, 11, and 12 for me, it's knowing that there's something bigger than me because human beings are fallible, right? Every human being is fallible. I have been on this journey long enough that I've had sponsors that have ghosted me, like literally stopped talking to me, blocked me on social media, blocked me on their phones, and was like, oh, okay, that person, but I didn't drink. I didn't drink. That person can do whatever they want to do. I don't really work that way. I'm kind of like a communicator, so I don't like to leave things up in the air. I'm like, here, we're going to have a conversation and things. Maybe not so much with my family of origin, but with like strangers, which people in AA in the end are strangers. So is it a perfect program? No, not by any stretch of imagination. Nothing's perfect. Nothing. But it gave me the ability to be sober and have these tools in my toolbox that when anything happens that stumbles down my pike of life, which either being with kids, family, community, whatever it is, I have tools to use rather than picking up that first drink. So AA was a huge winner. And I remember in the beginning being like, oh my gosh, this is like a cult. These people are strange. They sit in church basements. They talk about their problems. Because again, I was raised in a family where nobody talked about things. It's better to keep all of your secrets to yourself and not go and spread dirty laundry everywhere, not talk about our problems. Let's just keep them inside. And for me, I could never do that. I could never, I kept everything bottled, and it was just like I was like at that breaking point. And I like to use the analogy of like Francine from that show Arthur on PBS. My oldest son used to watch Arthur all the time, and Francine was Arthur's best friend. And Francine would like she'd get boiled up with this emotion and being angry and angry, and her head would blow off and spin around. And I that was a time when I would go and pick up a drink, right? When everything becomes uncontrollable, I have no power over anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am going to go explode now. I'm going to go down the street, or I'm going to go up the street and I'm going to explode and I'm going to get a drink and I'm going to do that. And it was self-harm 101. I was hurting me. I wasn't hurting anybody else. I was definitely hurting me. And so going through this journey and knowing that when I don't have to pick up a drink, life will get hard at times. Life is not easy. It's just how you dance with the problems these days. And today, again, as I mentioned earlier, having different ways of getting sober is just amazing, I think. One, I always thought it was kind of crazy that there's just like this one way, like everybody just goes to AA, that's what you're supposed to do. And again, I am so grateful that I had that. And I don't like that it says, I just read on an article when I was doing a little bit of research before today's podcast. I was reading like, I don't want to go to an AA room because it's in a dark, dreary church. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It was never a dark, dreary church. It might have been in a church, and it might have been in the basement, and it might have, for someone may perceive that to be dark, but I'm going to tell you it was the exact opposite. It was light, because in those rooms, you saw people get better. And I've watched people get better. And I've watched people that have come into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous with this look of dread and sorrow and sadness and just debilitated and broken and beaten up and hurt to the point where they're like, I'm going to go into this room and I'm going to seek help, which takes so much courage. Oh my gosh, it takes so much courage. I say that like walking into that first AA meeting for me was so hard. That door weighed like 8 billion pounds. I'm like, but I knew that it had worked, that people were living lives sober. And that's what I wanted. That is what I wanted more than anything, more than the fear of what anybody else was going to think, more than the fear of what the word alcoholic meant, more than what people thought of me going to an AA meeting. All that stuff was trumped. All those negative connotations, all those negative like perceptions, all those negative things that were out there, they were trumped by the fact, one thing, I wanted to get sober. And I knew, because I had seen it work for other people, that that was a way for me to go and get what I wanted, which was to be sober, was to be joining Alcoholics Anonymous. So guess what? All that other noise that was going on, because that's what it is at the end of the day, all that other noise didn't matter. What really mattered is that I wanted to get sober, and I wanted to learn how to do it. And I wanted to have friends around me, and I wanted to do something that I was going to totally succeed in for myself. And then again, for my kids down the road. But it was first about me. Let's just face it. As alcoholics, we're self-centered to the core. So it was about me, me, me. I need a pointed pillow that says, yes, it's all about me. And I'm not kidding. Um, But I literally went to those rooms and I said, I'm here. I raised my hand. I said who I was. I want to get sober. I want to get a sponsor. I want to walk through these steps. And for that, and those willingness to show up, literally all I had to do was pretty much show up at these meetings every day. And my life got better. And I learned how to live with the feelings, which aren't facts, and that they're always changing. And I learned these tools to put in my toolbox when times got tough, which they have, right? Moms died, best friends died, another best friend died. I've had a lot of stuff that's happened, a lot of life that's happened to me. And along the journey of this life, I don't have to pick up a drink. As crazy and insane as things have gotten different ways, which I'm not going to elaborate on today, but all these things that have happened, I've never felt like, oh my gosh, I have to pick up a drink or I'm not going to be okay. On the contrary, I'm like, okay, I got to double down. I got to get to more meetings. I got to call my sponsor more. I've got to get more in touch with people. And by the grace of God, I'm married to an alcoholic that's sober. So that makes it a little even easier because I can say to him, okay, this is what I'm going through, and we talk it through. And I feel really blessed for that too. And but you again, you want to get sober and you're just like, I don't want to do the thing. The AA thing, it's just too much how everybody says it's this, it's that. I don't want to do it. It's too scary. And I know that for better, for worse. And by the way, everything that I say on here is my opinion and my opinion only. I believe that we listen so much to what other people think instead of what we think, and I think if we don't pay attention to how we think and we just do what everybody else thinks and we're worried about what everybody else looks at us and what their thoughts are about us, it doesn't matter. What other people think about you is none of your business. This is about you. We come into the world alone. We're going to die alone. So, that being said, why would you go and you listen to everybody else say, "Oh, I'm not going to do this because everybody else says this or it looks this way and I'm too scared. I'm too scared of being associated with it." Whatever it is, don't let that get in the way of your freedom from alcohol that's driving you crazy because every time you drink, you get drunk or bad things happen. And every time a bad thing happens in your life, drinking's associated. That's good enough reason for me to quit. At least it was. And knowing that you are going to do this, no matter what anybody else thinks, is what's the important thing. Because I think that getting sober is such a thing about yourself and you wanting this. It takes some work. And I don't mean work like pushing a boulder up a mountain. I mean personal work inside of yourself, changing the way you've been doing things and getting to a place that you're like, I've got to do something differently. I can't pull out of the driveway and go to the right. I need to pull out of the driveway and go to the left. I've been doing the right for so long. I got to go do the left. And I think that when you do that and you commit to this, you can have amazing results. Amazing results. But again, you have to be willing to do the change and you have to be willing to do that work of going, all right, I want to go right because I've gone right forever. And no, I'm going to go left now. I'm going to go left. It feels uncomfortable in the very beginning, but I'm going to do it. And when you do that, things will change. You will get out of whatever rut you're in right now. And I was actually telling somebody yesterday, I was walking and talking to a friend and I was telling her, I said, the only thing that doesn't change is death and taxes. Okay. They're just like, they're always going to be there. Everything else pretty much is going to change. Pretty much. If you live, it will change. Like if you don't stay in your house and keep doing the same things over and over and over and over, which I think would be pretty boring. But if you want to do that, that's great. It's not for me to judge. And but if you want to change in your life and you're like, what am I going to do? I don't want to do this that I've been doing for so long. It's not giving me the answer to any of my problems. Doing this thing, picking up the drinking, doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results is not going to give you peace. It's not going to give you serenity. You're not going to feel like, oh my gosh, I've finally beaten this thing that's like been there for so long. I'm just so sick and tired of drinking and how it makes me feel the next day. What I do, what I say, what I post on social media, what I put out in the universe, negative. I don't want to do it anymore. So you don't want to do it anymore. AA could be an option for you. It's free, totally free. I mean, these are the things I love about AA. They say you can donate $1. Now it's actually $2 because, the rent in these churches has gone up. Donate $2. But if you have no money, you don't donate any money. They'll still help you. It's all free. It's all free. And that's what I loved about it. It was like, not that I was divorced. I had 3 little kids. It wasn't like somebody's paying for me to go to treatment. So for me, the only option was AA to get sober because I wanted to get sober more than I wanted to be drunk. And I was like, I'm going. And as scared as I am, and how I hate the word alcoholic and how I hate all this other stuff, I got to put that aside. And I have to say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my little brain thinks about all this other stuff. What is this person going to think? What's that person going to think? Da, 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 da. It doesn't matter. It's what I think. It's how I take care of things. For me, Elizabeth, if my neighbor doesn't like it, or somebody judges me for this, or doesn't want to be my friend anymore because I've decided to go to AA, that's on them. It's not on me. And I'll be okay. I'll be okay. In the beginning, it was scary as anything, though. Scary as anything. Scary as anything. I'm going to tell you, if you're scared, I totally get it. I totally get it. You don't want to do that. I've had more people than not tell me that they don't want to be an alcoholic, so they didn't go to AA because they didn't want to use the word alcoholic. The definition of alcoholism is something that related to me. It worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Because now there's options. There's options. A lot of it in the end, I think, might be very similar to AA. They just put it in a different box. That's what they've done with so many things that I've learned along this journey of my life. Like, they keep throwing these things, they put it in this box and that box and this box. And in the end, everybody's pretty much saying the same thing. They just put it in a different box. It's like, is it in a Tiffany's box, or is it in a Gap box, or is it in a Walmart box? It's all the same. It's like a cotton shirt. Let's face it. It might say Prada on it, but is it really any different than the one you got at Walmart? Maybe a little bit different quality, but it's still a white t-shirt, right? You're buying whatever the box says, that it feels comfortable for you, whatever that box is. It being a Walmart box, a Gap box. Is it smart recovery? Is that what you want to try? I've never been to any of these other, which I'm going to share with you, which I just actually got from a Forbes article. I went and Googled this, and I've never been to any of these. I'm going to tell you this again. I've never been to any other type of recovery. I've never been to a smart recovery meeting, but I will tell you that there is one right up the street from me where I live. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that go to it. And so they obviously have something that is working. And if you don't want to go to a smart recovery is an option. And it's facilitator-led, based on principles of cognitive behavior therapy. So facilitator-led. So I guess they put somebody up there that they think is more educated or something than you are. It's so, in an AA meeting, it's somebody that's in your group that's going to lead the meeting that day. And the only difference you might have in that with the person that's up leading a meeting in an AA room is going to be, they may have more time than you. Definitely will have more time than you, probably. I mean, at this point, for me, it's not always, most times it's not somebody with as much time as me, but that's okay. But when I was first coming in, you had to have like 90 days, 60 to 90 days before you chaired a meeting. But so here in Smart Recovery, they have an actual facilitator. I don't know if they're paid or how they go. I have no idea. I just know it's an option. If you want to look into it, Smart Recovery. And then Recovery Dharma, which I guess is Buddhist approach. So Zen, more breathing, probably, maybe some exercises, some quiet, I guess, quieting of the mind. One of the steps actually in AA is step, oh my gosh, this is me, step 10, 11, prayer meditation. Yeah. Step 11 is about prayer and meditation. So that's where the Dharma comes into AA. But again, recovery Dharma. If you want a Buddhist way, instead of an AA way or smart recovery way, you could go to the Dharma one. Then there's another one, Refuge Recovery. That's also a Buddhist approach. I'm going to have all of these if you want to click them in my description. If you want to click one of them and say, oh, okay, this is what I want to go check out. Women for Sobriety, helping recover from substance use disorder. So that would be probably only for women, and you can't have any men there. Now, for me personally, I live in a world that are men and women. So I've always liked co-ed meetings. It's just where I feel most comfortable. That is for me. Um, I I don't know. I think women sometimes are tough. That's just my own opinion. And men don't seem to get into the same, I don't know, drama that girls do. I mean, I guess they do, but it's just, I don't know. For me, I've always just gone to co-ed meetings, for better or for worse. That's just my jam. It's what I like the best. And but it's so nice that if you're only comfortable with women and you want to go to women for sobriety, that could be a group for you that it might work for you. And then LifeRing Secular Recovery. That's a secular approach for recovery, helpful for those who prefer lack of spiritual or religious overtones. So if you don't want God and you don't want Buddha and you don't want something to focus on that's bigger than you, I guess you go to this secular recovery. That could be your place. Sober Sis on Facebook. I've met a bunch of women that started in 2017. They're a bunch of women that I've actually helped along the path that have always remained in Sober Sis, have tried AA, and some have remained in AA, some have gone back to Sober Sis, but their journey for sobriety worked better for them. And then I know that you can go online and you can chat with people, and they have chat rooms in different places on Facebook. If you're like, I want to get sober and I live in, I wish they had that, but maybe they will one day. A place for, I live in this town and I want to meet you and I want to go to a meeting. And and I want to meet you and you live right down the street or you live in the same city as I do. And I want to go talk to somebody who also doesn't drink. I think that's an option. There's also another company that goes and does sober vacations and everybody's sober and it's a bunch of women and they have different speakers and different people that write books about not drinking. And you can go to one of those in different cities. I think I just saw they're having a golf one and somebody's told me about in Asheville, North Carolina, and said, do you want to go? It's so, having options, for me at least, is so important. Like if you want to quit drinking and you can use one of these resources to help you is key. Because I think the reality is that more people are dying of alcoholism and drug addiction than anything else, and people don't want to talk about it. And I started my journey getting sober back in the day. I first coined sober not ashamed because I had so much shame. And I wanted to reach out to the whole universe and say, look, I'm sober and I'm not ashamed, even though I really, at that point, had a ton of shame. But I was trying to mask that shame by saying, see, I'm sober, not ashamed. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I was a big believer in, if I tell you what I am, then you can't talk about me and say it and use it negatively. But that's not true because people still talk about me. I used to get hate mail all the time. I mean, it's been a journey, right? It's been a really big journey for me. And I don't pick up a drink no matter what, because I pick up a drink and I get drunk. It's not a question of if, it's not a question of when, it's just going to happen. It's just what happens to me. My DNA is made up to be that of one that's an alcoholic. I have a phenomenon of craving. I want 47 more. I learned that in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned that I wasn't a moral defect. I learned that I wasn't a piece of shit. I learned that I wasn't a horrible, horrible specimen of a human being because I had a drinking problem. They taught me that in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I will forever be indebted to them because I thought I was a bad person. The problem is, though, I couldn't drink like normal people ever. That's just the truth. I picked up a drink and I got drunk, and it wasn't because I was morally defective. It was because I wanted to be like a normal person. And I'm doing air quotes if you're listening to this. I want to be a normal person that could have a drink. But see, I never could drink like a normal person. It just never was in the cards for me. I was like, I would imagine if I were allergic to peanuts or allergic to something and I couldn't have it, and that would be it. I've always been allergic to alcohol since day one. And I chose, because of who I was and everything else, to only hang out with people that could drink the same way I did. Because most people that were teetotalers and didn't drink a lot probably didn't want to hang out with me, because I was that's the kind of drinking I did. I was a really heavy drinker. And changing that, and changing who I was, and changing the whole way I was going to live life. It was different than what everybody else around me was doing. And when I did that, it was kind of lonely in the beginning, and I didn't want to feel lonely. I wanted to put people around me. And so I went to those meetings and I made friends. Eventually I met my husband, who I did not meet in AA. I met him on match.com. But I think that we have this disease that wants to kill us. And in the end, if you want to get better, that's what matters. And if you don't want to if you don't want to go and reach out for the help of AA because of whatever reason it is, there's options today. I love that you have options. Can you imagine if they only served chicken at a restaurant you went to? They just served chicken and that was it. And you didn't have an option to get steak or shrimp or or salmon, whatever it is. Life has become like that. If you want to get sober, you can choose what works for you, and you can just take a little. Whoever said you can't do this, this, and this? I think that if you want, I mean, like, the fact that we have these options, I think is incredible. I think that having more ways to skin a cat is amazing. I think if there's a way to get better, and that one thing appeals to you more than another thing, the fact that something appeals to you is what you need to focus on. You don't have to focus on the fact that you don't want to do this and that's negative, and put one thing down or put another thing up or whatever it is. It's just taking what you need and leave the rest. Take what you need. Do what you need to do to get sober. Don't let anything else. This is about you and your journey in your life. And if you want to break up with booze, and I think it would be very hard to do it by yourself, find a group. Check out one of those groups I just mentioned. You can always reach out to me at elizabeth@elizabethchance.com, and I can give you maybe some resources, talk you through something. If you have any questions, reach out to me. To the best of my knowledge, as I mentioned, I've never really tried any of these other ways of getting sober, because I used AA. I continue to use AA. It's what works for me. But if that doesn't work for you, find something. Because white knuckling it and holding on for dear life by yourself and not having any tools is really, really hard. It's really hard that feels so uncomfortable. It's like, just let it go. It's like at the end of yoga, they say, get all tensed up and just let it go. Let it go. Find something. Have the courage to say, I'm going to reach out for help. I don't want to. It doesn't feel good. I feel like a loser. I feel so ashamed. I feel so lost. I don't know what to do, but this is killing me. I get it. I get it 110%. I get it. I get it. But saving your life and doing something for you so that you can get sober and live a life beyond your wildest dreams is of the utmost importance. So figure out one of these things that will help you. You don't have to do this by yourself. I promise you. You don't have to be all stressed. You get to do it with somebody else. Reach out. I promise you I'll write you back if you write to me. I always write back. Again, it's Elizabeth@elizabethchance.com. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe. Share it with your friends. Know this, you don't have to do life by yourself. You are not alone. As much as your head might tell you, I have to do this alone, I have to do this alone. No, you don't. Zoom is amazing. There's Zoom AA meetings. You can you can go to Google AA Zoom meetings if you want to do that. Just do something so that you feel like instead of getting into thinking like, I got to do this. I'm thinking that I got to do this. I think that do it. Get into action. That's where it's key, is taking the time to get into action, go on that computer, figure out where you can find a meeting, do something that's going to help you attain your goals of being free from that horrible thing of booze when you're in it. It's terrible. You can be free. It's worth it. I know it. I know it. I know it. I hope I didn't sound too preachy today. If I did, you can write to me and tell me I sounded too preachy. I know this. You can too have a sober life. I know it. I know it. And until next time, everybody, keep getting busy, living sober. Take care.